Good evening. Good evening, Polina. Good evening, Tino. Good evening, participants from Israel and around the world. My name is Gilad Meiri, and I'm the artist director of the Poetry Place International Zoom Festival with Noah Shakarji. And we welcome you all. We're really, really happy to be here in this event. And I'm honored to introduce Tino Moshkovic, who is an award-winning poet and a translator of Russian and English literature. He published two poetry books, the second one in the Poetry Place Publishing House. He translated from the modern Russian literature some classics like Dostoevsky and avant-garde like the Kubo futurists and contemporary poetry. Tino will host this show, and he will shortly present the poetess Polina Barskova. But beforehand, a few technical issues. Your microphones will be muted during this conversation, but we will dedicate the last few minutes, maybe 10 minutes or so, for your questions. And then you'll be able to open your microphone. You can also write us in the chat box during the conversation, and we'll try to assist you as best as we can. And now I'm very happy and pleased to pass the microphone to Tino, and we wish you all a pleasant meeting.
Thank you, Gilad. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for the wonderful festival in these Corona times. I'm very happy to be the host of this event with Polina Barskova, one of my favorite poets, one of the best Russian poets writing in Russian now, I think. I'll say a few words about her, just a few words, and then we'll read some poems and talk. That's it. Okay? So I think that one of the fundamental mechanisms of poetry is not resurrection, but maybe regeneration of complex, singular emotions, thoughts, insights, experiences, of course, by the means of specially or specifically arranged, clear lingual textuary images. By clear, I mean recognizable, maybe understandable on some level, relatable, and of course, artistically judged or simply felt on both levels, the common one and the artistic. So the aesthetic experience of a good poem or a moment maybe that makes a good poem is a feeling of contentment or positive experience of that specific mechanism, yes, of the sound that it makes, of the meaning that it produces. So a good poem, beside it being solid work of poetic craft, contains peaks. I call them peaks. I choose to call them peaks. Peaks of the feeling of contentment, the feeling I was talking before. The best non-poetic way to describe it is music. You know, everyone knows the feeling of when you just have to stop, you freeze, and you have to acknowledge the experience, the feel of the song, I don't know, the feel of the contentment of the hearing of the song. So these peaks are in poetry very rare, like good poetry is rare. And the thing with Miss Barskova, Mrs. Sorry, is that her poetry is a poetry of multiple peaks. I mean, each poem contains not one, but couple of picks like this. So you don't even have time to breathe between one and the other. So these picks are rare, as good poetry rare, that's what I said. And the foundation for this with her poetry, I think with your poetry, I'm talking to you now directly, is the variety, the sheer variety of modes and devices that she uses. And that is why it's so hard to pick the poems to translate, because I don't know, I like a lot. I like them a lot, and I like lots of them. So it was a little bit hard to choose, but I picked the ones I liked. I don't know, not really like the most, but that were kind enough to be translated by me, the poems. That's it. That's what I wanted to say. And now I want to read some poetry in Hebrew and English, and then we'll talk. And Polina, I translated 4. I sent them to you, and you are free to choose whatever you want. And I read them after you.
Maybe you read them in Russian also. Maybe.
Yeah, in Russian, of course.
Yeah,
in
you
Russian.
said English, so okay.
No.
All right.
So how will we do it? One by one, I suggest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Poem in Russian and then translation.
Exactly.
Okay. First of all, good afternoon, good evening. Wonderful to be here, wonderful not to be here. Wonderful to be connected. Thank you so much to the festival, to Tino, to our audience. So I'll read a couple of poems translated. And also I have to say that it's so exciting for me to be translated into this language. It's a holiday. It's an event. It's an event, and as Celan would put it, it's an important encounter. The first poem that I will read is, as every poem, I suspect, to some extent, is about love, but actually it's also about love to translators and translation. It's called Tino, стихи о том, как я мыла Эрику голову и пена попала ему в ухо. So maybe we have to move, because on the screen there is another text now.
Yes, this one.
Yeah, wonderful. And the poem is dedicated to Mikhail Lazinsky, one of the greatest Russian translators of the 20th century. And the whole poem is about relationship with the text and what happens to the text when it's being translated. Царь лесной, в преддверие ушей, прокажающий настой, не лей. С белиной в сосудце не крадись к спящему царю садов. Царь болотный, пожалей его. Пожалей его живую кровь. Круто и внезапно свертывает кровь яд, словно кислым капнуть в молоко. Вот ты беспомощен, как Гамлет старший, и я беспочвенен, как Гамлет младший. А перламутровая раковина уха среди агатовых белеет прядей, напоминая живо мне об инциденте с дядей. Дай языком пропитанным проказой проникнуть мне в твою середку, поближе к мозгу. Дай насладиться утренней проказой, дай посмотреть, как сновидений горстку боль пропадает. Боль прободает, вот призрачный имперский горностай. От мыльных брызг отряхивает шерстку, вот словно мыло круглого кусок выскальзывает, тает. Как Лазарю мгновенную коростой. Все тело мерзостные струпья облепили. Так мой язык, так мой сосудец с беленою. Тебя, моллюск мой милый, облепил и сделал мною.
ועכשיו ברוסית? עכשיו בעברית, סליחה. שיר על איך חפפתי לאריק את השיער, והקצף נכנס לו לאוזן. זה אמנם מוקדש ללוזינסקי, אבל כל האלוזיות, כל ההפניות של פולין, I'm talking, sorry Polina, I'm speaking Hebrew now. Gilad, do you think I should explain it in English?
Yeah, it's a hard question now to ask any people, but יש מישהו פה שלא מבין?
אוקיי, אני אסביר בקצרה בעברית, העניין הוא כזה. בשיר הזה יש המון אלוזיות לתרגום של לוזינסקי, שעליו דיברה פולינה, הוא מתרגם מאוד ידוע של המלט, ועומד במרכז איזשהו ויכוח מאוד ידוע בתרגום הרוסי, בין לוזינסקי לבין התרגום שלו, לבין התרגום של פסטרנק להמלט. ופולינה כמובן מעדיפה את התרגום של לוזינסקי, שהוא אומנם יותר ישן, או אפשר להגיד יותר ארכני, אבל הוא יותר איכשהו מעביר את האווירה השייקספירית, ולאו דווקא את האווירה העכשווית המובנת. אז אני כמובן החלפתי את כל ציטוטי לוזינסקי בשיר הזה לציטוטים משלונסקי, שהוא המתרגם העברי הכי גדול במאה ה-20, וגם תרגם את המלט, וגם עשה לעצמו כל מיני דברים שם, והרשה לעצמו חופש. בכל מקרה, מבחינתי לוזינסקי הוא שלונסקי, ואני תרגמתי את זה ככה. איך חפפתי לאריק את השיער, והקצף נכנס לו לאוזן. אדון היער, אל תגיר את מסך הצרעת אל האוזן, ובסתר ועם ארס המרודה בספל אל תבוא אל מלך הגנים הנם. מלך התין חוס על שבילי הגוף, מבואותיו ועל דמו החם. מיד בעוז פתאום, כחומץ בחלב, יקפא בגוף בריא כל נטף דם טהור, עדי קרש כולו. הנה אתה, כמו המלט הזקן חסר אונים, הנה אני כמו המלט הצעיר מופרח ונמלונים, בסבך של מחלפות אגת, צדפת האוזן הפנימית, בלבניותה מזדהרת, מזכירה לי את תקרית הדוד המצערת. הנח לי בלשון ספוגה במסך הצרעת, לחדור אל תוכך, קרוב למוח, תן ליהנות בבוקר מהתפרחחות מופרעת, לראות איך את קמצוץ החלם, הנימוח, מפלח סבל. הנה חמוס הרפאים הקיסרי, המנער את פרוותו מרסיסי הקצף, כמוהו כפיסת סבון עגול, מחליק נמס ומתפוגג להבל, וכפי ששכין היכה את לזרוס בייסורים, ציפה את כל גופו בחזזית נתאבת, כך לשוני הו רקיחה שלי, ציפתה אותך, התקינה כמו רקחה אותי ממך.
Thank you. And the next poem that I'll read in Russian, though written in a completely different moment, at a completely different stage of my life, I think it has some connections to the first one. If the first one for me is about this process when the new text in a foreign language finds itself in the language of translation and becomes and actually becomes a part of a new body, right? And this is a very violent, if you wish, physiological process when something is being translated, when something is being incorporated, right? This line from Shakespeare becomes, for example, it becomes a part of extremely competitive, ambitious Russian tradition. The second poem is about memory, also about love. It's about the being of the beloved, of the dead beloved, becoming a part of you, becoming a part of the one who remembers. And again, that suddenly you feel that that one whom you remember, because he or she doesn't exist anymore outside as a separate thing, because they've disappeared, they've died. And now you are the vessel for memory, as in translation, a new language becomes a vessel for the translated. Basically, both poems are about what we carry with ourselves. So, Russian now. I also am really enjoying how we're jumping from language to language. Это не я сижу на балконе в осенний зной. Это ты здесь сидишь, один, в колченогом кресле. Потому что, войдя в меня, ты обернулся мной. Вот разгадка. Движения умерли, воскресли. И как сам себя человек не помнит, так изнутри я тебя не помню. Но тот, кто глядит снаружи на меня, тот видит мыльные пузыри твоих крупных черт, парящие в адской стуже. Невнимание к нашим призракам, снам, теням, ко всему, чем мир наполнен, как маслом, банка так, что рыбий жир сочится по простыням и стекает потом по лбу удалого панка в Сан-Франциский полдень, когда, притворившись мной, ты бредешь по улице с детским названием «Рынок» и вдыхаешь мир, недоступный тебе, блажной, даже порами рыжих, дешевых моих ботинок.
Wonderful.
Now you.
Okay, now me. Just one remark. It's very hard to read after the author because I have the feeling that I need to read exactly like you, but I don't read exactly like you, so I'm just... Okay. זו לא אני איתך במרפסת, בחום הסתווי סתני. זה רק אתה כאן לבד, יושב בכורסה הצולעת. כי אחרי שנכנסת אליי, הפכת להיות אני. הנה פתרון החידה, המחוות מתו / התגברו על המוות. וכפי שאדם לא זוכר את עצמו, כך כל איבריי בפנים, לא זוכרים אותך, אך מבחוץ זה נראה כאילו, כל כולי בועות סבון עצומות של תווי הפנים הבולטים שלך, מסתחררות בסערה בתחילו, מתכחשות לרוחות הרפאים שלנו, לצללים, לחלומות הקטנים, לכל מה שהעולם הזה מלא בו כמו בקבוק או צנצנת, כך ששומן הדגים נוזל לי, זולג לי על הסדינים, ונוטף ממצחו של פנקיסט בזיעה הצוננת. בצהרי סן פרנסיסקו, כשאתה ברחוב השוק, מחופש אליי, הולך לאיתך בשמש, בעולם לא לך המוטרף, ונושם אותו שוב ושוב, בכל נגבובית נעלי הזולות, שגוונן גון שמש, גבון נמש. סליחה. זהו.
I want to ask something about the Market Street. You mean Market Street or the street of the market? Because in San
It's the Market Street in San Francisco.
Yes, yes, I know. Okay. He translated because, okay. Right. By the way, Tino cannot say that, but he translated your poems beautifully. You know, I can say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very important to hear that.
Yes, and I'm very, very objective.
Maybe it's time for questions from you, Tina.
You think, okay, we'll stop now and start a little bit to talk a little bit. First of all, I wanted to ask you about the poems that I translated, and it's just curiosity. Were you surprised to see what exactly I translated? Like, how do you react to that, and why?
I was surprised, and every time when I meet a new translator and they bring to me their choices, it's a surprise. And I think it's one of the most interesting part of being translated, because you see yourself in the new, very active, very creative mirror. And you see yourself being made into something new. We all know, I suspect that after all, translation is basically a very, very aggressive, attentive, intimate process of interpretation, right? With this tool of a different language. And every time when you meet a new translator, a new real translator who cares, you meet a new interpretation. So for this interpretation, these texts are important. Again, another curious thing about my particular story, that I've been writing for a long time, like forever. As I always melancholically remark now, I am one of those, unpleasant, wounded children who are now turning gray. I've been writing and publishing from the age of 8. I've written lots of poems. And it's a kind of an interesting story, I think, about continuity. When you can see your creative path back for so long, you understand that you've written something of interest to yourself, but also you've written something completely vacuous, completely empty. And also that you've repeated yourself many, many times. You suddenly have a different understanding of the whole practice thing. For me, again, all our stories are very individual, very subjective. For me, writing is about practice, like ballet, or like working with clay. You just repeat the gesture and repeat the gesture. And as you said also, you try to catch motion and fill it with sound. So when you meet some poems that some of them were written 20 years ago. For example, the San Francisco poem, yes, it's about the moment when I moved to San Francisco where I studied. And also it's kind of astonishing. It's like meeting an old friend or an old lover. Suddenly, like, you? Who are you now? What is our relationship now? Do I like you now? Do I know you now? Do we still belong to each other? It's a very intense moment in a way. And these two poems, as I understood even via reading them today, they're still alive for me. Also the first one, because I think about translation all the time. It's now a very active part of my life. I do translation myself, somewhat, little bit, but also people translate me. And this this playful poem, which seems to be about a scene in the shower in the morning, but actually it's about, as Tino said, it's my attempt to prop up Lazinski versus Pasternak, and to remind us that there are various ways to translate. Russian poetry, for obvious reasons, accepted Pasternak's Shakespeare as more romantic and more sexy and all that. But what Lazinski did with his obsessive, boring precision, trying to put everything, trying to have everything, I think it's absolutely astounding. And for me, this is also very, very important. And now, for this reason, also this poem is alive for me.
I have two following questions, and this is even before we start the ones that we prepared. So it means it's going well. That's it. Aren't you afraid of writing a lot? I mean, not meeting your own standards sometimes, because it's very scary, and it makes some poets not even start a poem because they're afraid to. You understand what I'm saying? This is the first question. And the second question about translation. So let's. Who do you translate, and and why?
Well, good news now. These days, I write less poetry.
I don't know if it's good.
Right. And it's also how one's life is working out. I also write prose. This is not very original for a poet to begin trying oneself in a different dimension. Actually, it's rather almost predictable. I can think of like basically every Russian poet. I can think of at some point switched. It's an interesting question why they switch, we switch. And also I think this border between poetry and prose is extremely exciting place. We talked.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that it's actually really in Russia. It was very common to do that, especially in the beginning of the century, 20th century. Everybody did everything.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote poetry and they wrote criticism and maybe even I don't know prose and short. That's what I wanted to say. It's very common.
It's the same now. I think that the most interesting, again, it's absolutely whom you ask, but I think that the most interesting prose in Russian now is written by poets. Because the language is exciting that is created. This is one of the answers. So I write, back to the question, I write less poetry. And yes, to your rather kind of direct and intimate question, when you've been writing for more than 30 years, writing becomes more difficult on some level. And it's very, very disappointing. When I tell my students about that, they look at me with horror, because there is this hope that if you've been doing this for all these years, you learned something. But I feel that the main thing that I learned is that a good poem is the poem that is a surprise for you to yourself. That something happens and you're like, wow, like what did just happen?
What did I do? Yeah.
What did I do? And again, after so many years, or like more repetitions of the act, if you wish, it's not that easy to surprise yourself. And this question, maybe I'm thinking in very medieval terms, but again, Russian poetry, to some extent, there are many moments of delay in this tradition. Whether it's good or bad, it's a very interesting discussion. Mm-hmm. But I think, again, it's an interesting moment for me to now, because there is a conflict to some extent. I've been doing it so long, so I'm supposed to be a master.
Oh, you are.
And on the other hand, for a real poem, for a live poem to be born, you kind of have to unmaster yourself for a moment. And for everybody to think, wow, what is being created in front of our eyes? It's so strange and so new. So but, this poem...
sorry, I think that I said that you are a master, not because of the poems that you will maybe write in the future, but thanks to the poems that you already have written.
Right. And nevertheless, every time you have to be ready to kind of to free yourself, because another thing, as you said, as you've mentioned in our conversation, poetry, real poetry, good poetry, poetry that makes you like feel all these things, feel all the feelings, it is somehow about freedom. It's a mastery of freedom. So what is your question about translation?
Who do you translate? And
whom do you translate? Yeah. At this moment, I'm translating from Ukrainian into Russian. There's many things that I do in life, I do kind of out of spite. And just nazlo. And given what's happening between two cultures now, obviously between two states, but as a result between two cultures, right? Russian state completely lost its mind trying to, again, as in a poem, to kind of devour the country next to it. But the country next to it, understandably, is very upset about it and wants to estrange itself now from Russian culture. So what might be happening is that two cultures that were in complicated relationship of togetherness for centuries, now they just want divorce. Divorce might be a healthy thing.
But not possible.
Right, but connections between cultures and languages is also a healthy thing. So, and necessary. So for me, it's absolutely important that Russians continue reading Ukrainians and Ukrainians continue reading Russians. And for example, recently I've been working on a completely amazing and difficult cycle, a book written by a poet, Mariana Kianovska, about Babi Yar, about the massacre of Babi Yar. And again, it's very, very important that this is poetry written by a Ukrainian poet, translated by Russian poet about the events of Babi Yar, that, as we all remember, it was first of all, not only, but first of all, tragedy of Jews. And that now Ukrainians and Russians again should speak about it, for me is very important.
So translating Ukrainian poetry makes you a Russian poet. And
In a way.
So what does it mean to be a Russian poet? And do you feel an immigrant Russian poet? And do you feel an immigrant Jewish Russian poet? That's it.
Also, like, I talked to you from Amherst, Massachusetts, right? And Amherst, Massachusetts is a very important, tiny town in history of poetry, because it's a place where Emily Dickinson was self-isolating long before our weird times. This is an incredibly complicated question for me. First of all, I think about myself as a poet from Petersburg.
And to people who don't know, it's very important that it's St. Petersburg and not Moscow.
Right. Well, at least I think so.
No, not only you. It's culture. It's a cultural thing. It's not right. Up to you. It's not up to you.
Which means that I represent a certain set of ideas, traditions, and mythologies. For example, and this seems to be so strange and so relative, but I follow tradition that was very formal in a way, and it's difficult to immediately discern it in a foreign language, but this was a tradition about rhyme and meter. It was a tradition of a beautiful poem, of a poem as a beautiful object, basically, beautiful thing, where everything sounds, everything connected. We can say that starting from Pushkin, and then in a way, often we think about Brodsky as a very important event of the second part of the 20th century, with hundreds of very curious figures with them. But also I think this tradition is continuing today of Petersburg poetry. Also the tradition that is extremely self-referential. There is even a notion that is called Peterbursky text, Petersburg text. It's a tradition of literature, of poetry, where everybody reads each other and quotes each other. It's like a game of sorts. So this is extremely important. And also,
very postmodern.
Yeah. Also, I haven't lived there for 20 years. I moved when I was 22 to this country, to the United States. But nevertheless, I write in Russian, and I cannot write poetry in English, which is, again, a particular case. I have some wonderful friends who do write in their second language, in the language with which they were not born. I absolutely admire this. I envy this, I guess, but I cannot do this. I belong in Russian, and weirdly enough, I also feel that I kind of belong with Petersburg, and more than that, with Leningrad. There's another thing that I do as a scholar and a professor. I study culture and poetry of the siege of Leningrad, and I just finished a book about poetry written during the siege. So in Russian. So my allegiance is very much to that city. I think in some way in my head, more than with Russia. And what else can I say? I'm very obviously, I am once at a bus station, somebody came to me and asked, to my huge surprise, because it was a rare occasion, in New York, of all the cities, somebody came to me and said, "Hey, do you know you're a Jewess?" And I'm like, wow, even the word in New York. So I do know that. And it's a complicated question because, as you might know, in Soviet Union, for many of us, it became a cultural notion. And most of my favorite poets in Russian were Jews, like Mandelstam, Pasternak, and many others. And yes, I spend lots of time speaking English, teaching in English. My daughter speaks English a lot. So I feel that there are all these layers. And I think, again, it's not very original. It's interesting. That's what many of us feel. We have layered identities that speak to each other in some problematic, interesting ways.
Well, thank you for the great answer. Let's read some more poetry, maybe?
Absolutely. So let's read the strange sonnet.
Strange sonnet.
Антологический сонет. Я не знаю, откуда начать мне этот рассказ. Я не знаю, как вообще можно начать рассказ. Всем известно, что остается в руке, и что думает ящерица, остановившаяся отдышаться в тени камня, в доброй миле от смущенного обладателя, тепло-прохладного хвостика, чешуйчатого ничего. Потрясая этим ничем, в полуденном тягучем растворе желание знать, ужаса знать, я начинаю рассказ. И тут же скатываюсь в кучку эпитетов, обманывая себя надеждой жемчужина зерна. Если по когтю судить обо льве, лев получается желтой, громадной, грубой пластиной с обломанным краем. По когтю не угадать коротеньких волосков в звериных ушах, гулкого глаза, отразившего озеро, отразившее плеск пеликаньих крыльев. Если судить о тебе, потому что осталось в руках, получается отражение в глазу, отражения летящих над озером. Если судить о тебе, если судить по тебе о том, что осталось в руках, на берегу пересохшего озера, стервятник, как устрицу бездельник в приморском кафе, всасывает трепещущий глаз околевшего льва.
Beautiful. I don't have a lot of verlibers. This is one of them, and I'm sorry, but I made it a little bit rhythmic. It just happened. And as a סונט אונתולוגי. אני לא יודעת עכשיו מהיכן להתחיל בסיפור. אני לא יודעת בכלל איך אפשר להתחיל בסיפור. ברור כבר מה נשאר אצלי ביד, ומה חושבת הסממית שנעצרה כדי להסדיר את הנשימה בצל הסלע, במרחק של מייל לפחות מהאוחזת נבוכה, בקצה זנבה הקר חמים, בכלום המקוסקס. בטלטלי בכלום הזה בתוך תמיסת הצהריים הצמיגית של הכמיהה לדעת, של הפחד לברר, רוצה כבר לספר, ומתרסקת בשנייה לערימת שמות תואר מופרזים, מתוך תקוות השווא למצוא שם איזו מחט או פנינה. אם ננסה לתהות על טיב האריה ונתבסס על תופר יחידי, יצא שהטורף הוא לוח קרן גס ענק, צהוב ושבור קצה. לא, אי אפשר על פי התופר לנחש את השיער הדק והעדין שמרחש בתוך אוזניו, ואת עיניו הסוענות שבתוכן הבבואה של האגם ושל כנפי הסכנאים חובטות במים. ואם בכל זאת אנסה לתהות על קנקנך על פי מה שנשאר לי בידיים, לבטח יתברר לי שאתה ההשתקפות בתוך העין של בבואת כל מה שמרחף מעל. ואם לתהות על טיב תכולת ידיי על פיך, תתחבר, ימה שהתייבשה, ועל גדתה, הנשר כמו בטלן מול ערימות צדפות בבית קפה, מוצץ את עין האריה הרוטטה. That's it.
So, Tino, do you have more poems to read?
Yeah, we have another one.
You have
I
another
guess.
one? Okay, and then maybe move on to some questions from the...
Yeah. I love this.
Yes.
Yes. Maybe a couple of words about this? Do you want to say something? No?
Right. It has a epigraph, as many of my poems do. Another thing about tradition and world of poetry with which I connect myself, it's very learned poetry. It's a poetry of readers, of obsessive readers. So the epigraph is from Zachar Mazoch, known to us for a number of reasons, but also in addition to having interesting interests in his sexual life, he was a brilliant historian and ethnographer and traveled widely and wrote about it. Видел, как по улицам Львова в телегах везли убитых и раненых, инсургентов, как кровь их сочилась через солому, как ее лизали псы. Захар Мазох, галицийские повести. Стихотворение называется «Пес». И это одно из многих моих стихотворений о... Если можно так сказать, и меня часто об этом спрашивают, это политические стихи, это стихи о болезнях общества. Но мне кажется, все это становится поэзией только если ты пишешь с собой, если ты связан, если твое тело переживает эти болезни. Пес. Сердце плачет, сердце просит, сердце пла. Ветер тучи, ветер носит, обла-бла. Дай мне руки, губы, руки, дай мне груди, дай мне все. Люди, суки, боги, буки, надо всем твое лицо. Дай мне трогать щеки, брови, белой тростью слепоты. Дай мне шеи, дай мне крови, пить мне крови, дай мне ты. Вот луна над лесом встала, черен лес, луна бела. вот уже тебя не стало, вот уже и ночь прошла, только шелудивый воет. Дли и плакай эту песнь. Ветер носит, ветер роет, приближается болезнь. Вот уже тебя не стало, пусто место, свято мне. Зачарованный висталок, лес утоплен в тишине. Разговорчивый русалок примостился на волне. Коллектив. Да нет, не ворон ты, не мельник и не князь. Зачарованный русалок, лес так черен, как черна между нами связь, начерта между нами связь, как бела между нами связь, как была между нами связь, как красна между нами связь, как проста между нами связь. Почему так воет пес?
Beautiful. אוקיי, כלב. זה האפיגרף, המוטו. ראיתי איך ברחובות העיר לבוב הובילו בעגלות הרתומות לסוסים את המתקוממים, ההרוגים והפצועים, איך הדם שלהם נטף מהחציר, איך הכלבים ליקקו אותו. לב צובח, לב קמע, לב קמע, לב צובע. אב ברוח, אף פורח, אב בורח, אב עובר. הב ידיים, הב שפתיים, הב שדיים, אל תחדל. חרה כאן ושם פשניים, רק פניך ממעל. הב גבות ולחיים, הב לגעת, הב ליבם. הב צוואר, דמים, דמי הם, הב לגמוע, הב לדם. לובן בא על שחור החורש, הלבנה בעלתה, הנה תמה האשמורת השלישית וגם אתה. רק הכלב מתייפח, שיר, עשה בי חלחלה. רוח בא חופר, כופח, וקרבה המחלה. הנה תמה האשמורת, יתקדש לי ריק עינך. כקדש כשוף החורש נעלם בבת אחת. בטול הים על גל לאורך, בא בשיח ובשיג. לא עורב שחור משחור, הוא לא טוחן ולא נסיך. בטול הים כשוף במורך, שחור החורש, שחור החורש, שחור קשרינו הכמוסים, שחור לנו על היחסים, לא ונגע היחסים, לא לובנו היחסים, ארגמן היחסים, ברגיל היחסים, כלב לא צובח סתם.
Tino, we have another 5 minutes or so. There are many questions. We cannot answer all of them, but I must tell you that in the chat there are so many good and nice words about the poems and about the translation. It's really, it makes me very happy, and all of us. And, you maybe you choose maybe one question, and Polina, maybe if you see the chat. And if I'm correct, Tino, that these poems are going to be in Nano Poetica.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. So maybe you want to say something about that and one question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. I'm working on an anthology of contemporary Russian poetry for Poetry Place, the publishing house. Poets, I think I'm going to include 70 years of poetry since the 50s to contemporary poetry. I want to thank Polina, who introduced me to some of the nicest new poets that I haven't known until now. And I'm going to include some of them, of course. And it's going to be a great, big anthology. We mentioned Shlonsky before, and Shlonsky and Leah Goldberg and Alexander Penn in the 30s published a very important book of a small anthology of Russian poetry of the Silver Age, and it made a huge difference in the literary Israeli world. And this is my inspiration. This is what I want to do now. That's it.
And I wanted to add to this when we talked to Tino about this project, and Tino told me what's happening, why there are so many interesting poets writing in Russian today, what's up? To which I said with excitement that this is the case. And sometimes it completely drives me nuts. That I feel that I live in an extremely important literary moment. That there are some poets in their 70s, in their 60s, like Gandlevsky, like Rubinstein, like Sidakova, for example. And then there are unbelievably strong and strange and original, I think, poets in the early 30s, and all the gamut in between. And I think that my generation in the mid-40s is also very interesting, and we all do different things. There are people who are interested in the Western and American, the younger people, and German. There are all the people who are still extremely interested in the Soviet tradition and who investigate poetically legacy of Soviet poetry, which was incredibly perverse and incredibly strong. And there are all kinds of hybrids of all these poetries. There are all kinds of dialogues happening between us. So in a way, and there are new things coming constantly. So it is undeniably a moment of excitement, and I am so glad that there is a promise of this anthology and a promise that Israeli reader will meet this whole world of poetry. So with this feeling of promise and huge gratitude to Tino and to all of you, I think it might be a good moment to say goodbye.
Thank you so much to Polina. You were great and we had a great time, I think, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your poetry and for being here with us and talking to us.
Noah, please. Noah?
Hope to see
questions, because we have here some questions of the audience. Can I ask?
Yeah, I don't know.
So Joanna asked, how does it feel to hear your poems in a different language, a different music of words?
Every time it's completely strange. There is this very strong physiological moment of strangeness that your own words kind of betrayed you and turned into something else. With the last poem that Tina read, I absolutely heard the vibe. I heard this kind of, because the last poem is made almost like a magic enchantment, right? The repetition. And I heard that something analogous is happening in a new language, but also very different. And it's one of the most interesting moments for me.
Thank you. Another question, you and Tino, could you talk a little more about the layered identity of the literary translator, as mentioned earlier by Polina? Also, how does the act of translation affect your own writing?
Tino.
Okay. For me, translation is practice. I wanted to say before about the anthology, I think one of the most important things in such an anthology, it's the the many models of poetry that it presents. And you can do many things differently and get to the same, experiences, the experiences that I talked about before. So as a translator, I first of all learn from the people I translate, from the poets I translate, and I see what I like, I see what I like less, and then automatically it becomes poetry of my own after that. I'm not sitting with poems in front of me and trying to do something. I'm just doing, and then when I think about it, I guess I understand that it came from this one or that one or something like that. And translating, I think, it's very important to make the poem translated to recreate the climate, the whole experiences. You can, I don't know, do it with different words or a little bit differently, but the whole experience has to be the same. You have to feel the poet that you're translating. You have to understand, maybe sometimes I even guess what was written here before, or I don't know, what did you do before that and why this word came instead of another word. And I read, before I start translating, I read a lot of the person that I'm translating, to maybe understand the way of thinking, the poetical thinking, and then I'm just acting. I'm trying to be that person in another language. And of course, there's me. Someone said to me today, Galia said to me today, that a friend read some of the translations, and she said that there are some similarities between my poetry and your poetry, and I don't know what it is. Is it the translation, or is it that's why I like your poetry, because it reminds me of mine? I don't know. But it's layers, those are the layers, and you can't separate them. It's everything together.
So
that's a wonderful answer. All I can add is that I teach a lot here. The whole course is called Poetry as Translation. There are many young people who want to become writers and all that. Wonderful. And what I tell them that I think translation is just a necessary part of the craft. You absolutely must translate. It's an exercise in not being yourself. It's an exercise in finding, as Tino just said, new things about yourself. It's also a total magic. It's a fairy tale. You have a chance to turn into somebody else. I think this is one of our utmost desires in life. It just translation gives you this opportunity to try on another identity, to try on another language, to try on another culture. One of the best things out there. Very difficult though. The price for pleasure is high.
Yes.
okay, I need to stop the party because there's another party coming up.
Great.
In just about 10 minutes. It was really fascinating, and it was fun. It was really, really a good time with you all. And I want to thank you, Polina, and I want to thank you, Tino, and the Poetry Place team, Noah, which is the art director with me, and Atara and Aviv and Ayelet Shachar. And I want to thank you all, a few participants that you've been with us. And in 10 minutes, in 7:15 Israel time, we're going to be hosting Tan Litzan and Victor Rodriguez Nunez from Cuba. So,
and you have the link to the meeting in the chat here, so you can just come.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Спасибо.
Спасибо.
Thank you.